Oh, I know. It's not final.
In her mind was going to be
All right, all yours.
All right, welcome everybody to the May 3rd, 2023 meeting. It is 6 p.m. I'm going to open the floor up for public hearing for special amusement and victualler license. I always have a problem with that word.
Money.
Oh, yeah.
You executive.
So is there any questions, comments on the special amusement and licenses for these businesses? Yes, Bob.
Yeah, it all, well, they all did it before, except for second one. What's second one doing?
Selectmen Farms,
Yeah.
yeah, they do one, they always do one,
Oh, do they?
yeah, for the stuff that they sell.
The market, okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking events and such.
Yeah.
And then the only other question I would have would be, are they, I know this new management company, do we know if they're up to speed on all their fire stuff? That really doesn't matter for this conversation, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So were there any complaints previously about any of these? Yeah, so for example, we had talked about, this should be again, in terms of concerns about them, causing problems down on the wharf, so. Is that a condition we're gonna put on this, about having, remember we talked about over a certain number of people, then they might have to provide their own security or something? Because it sounded, that did come and say that they were having trouble, so that's kind of my question. And I guess we should go through all of them and make sure, none of the other ones had any complaints, noise or activity or. So I don't know, I guess that's for Vita.
From the town office perspective, we haven't received any complaints in all of these, and the conversation that Matt and I left at was, there's new management. He was gonna reach out to me when he was ready, and then him and I were going to connect with the new management and meet with them to see if we can, get them to come up to an understanding about trying to maintain the wedding parties at a more reasonable rate, so then that way we didn't have to move forth with some kind of a town enforcement.
Okay, because he did come to the meeting and sort of ask us that, so you're saying he's changed his perspective on that?
The last conversation I had with him was probably within the last month to month and a half, where we agreed that we would, we would go talk to the management together when they were here.
Okay, I'm good with that.
All right. Mark.
The Two Birds Cafe, is this the first time that they've applied for special amusement?
They applied last year.
Oh, they did?
They were a little bit, for special amusement. or
It's the
victualers?
first time for
For
special
special
amusement.
amusement, for victualers.
Victualers the second time.
This is the first time for special amusement?
Right.
Okay.
So, what about the fire?
That's in the works, so you'll have to approve these
Okay.
pending the fire inspection.
Okay. So typically you do a fire inspection, it's part of it.
We've got some of them, but not all of them.
Okay.
But we gave Ralph a couple weeks ago the paperwork for that. And we got back Two Birds, the Hall, and Dowdy's,
Yeah.
but not the Inn yet. I think it's too, I think he explained it's almost too early for him, hard for him to get in there and get what he needs. He'll do it, he'll get done.
Bo, are you looking for a motion to include all of these or one at a time?
No motion yet. You have to close the hearing first.
Yeah,
and
yep.
then-
Yes,
So we should make sure the public doesn't have any.
yeah, but contingent on if,
Oh,
No, if
the
they
motion-
pass their-
Motion comes after this discussion.
yes,
so-
yeah.
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 Sorry about that.
No, we're still in public hearing, so.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board?
I guess I just want to, so is a fire inspection a requirement of getting a permit, or is that
It's part of it. I mean, I can show you what it looks like.
But I mean, is it something we require, or the state requires?
I don't know,
It's according to our ordinance.
Oh,
I think it's, yeah.
There's a special amusement and a vigilers.
okay, good. Okay.
Any comments from the public? Questions? No? All right, any other? All right. So moving on to public comments for items not on the agenda for the discussion, not action. Are there any comments from the public? We got a rowdy crowd. All right, moving on to town report. Hand it off to Vika.
There's only a couple of things on the TA report. One was, we, after a second attempt, after two attempts, had a successful, joint meeting with the Long Island Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator. A variety of topics were discussed. Park master, code enforcement, parking, solid waste on cars, parking, were some of the topics. And, the Long Island Town Administrator is gonna follow up with me with, proceeded with some, discussions, with, Cumberland County Sheriff's Department, to try to see whether there could be any, further discussions that could maybe transpire with some decisions from that. And I didn't put a whole lot of detail on this because all of the selectmen were present, and I figured if you guys wanted to provide any information, then we can about your perspective about that meeting.
Thank you.
I had the link before the end, so besides the law enforcement, was there anything else they wanted to pursue now?
I mean, my takeaway is that we're not right away pursuing anything. We're discussing about how we can, pursue these things through some discussions and further organizations about whether it's constable, harbor master, law enforcement, but nothing, and, let me know if I'm wrong, nothing was decided as far as, we're gonna do this right now and start, on this particular day.
Nothing specific.
Nothing immediate.
Okay.
Jen?
They were gonna get back to us after they spoke to, Cumberland County Sheriff's.
Yeah, so, Brian reached out to the Cumberland County Sheriff, and I actually checked my emails today, either today or last night, the sheriff responded, because they CC'd me on the email, about setting up, some form of a meeting, to hear, their thoughts, but I haven't read the email, so I can't really speak as to what was in it. Next thing is something that we received through mail recently. It's a notice from the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry about an application that was received for the Hope Island owners. The application is attached. It's also been posted on the website. The code enforcement officer and the harbor master both received copies of it. It's an opportunity for the public and municipal officials to comment. And if anybody wishes to make a comment, they should be submitted before May 15th. And we, to my understanding, having briefly spoken about this to the code enforcement officer, have not received any kind of application through the town. So this is, the town hasn't had any involvement other than getting this notice.
Carol.
So doesn't the town need to get an application?
I think when an application is going to be submitted, I really can't speak to the details because I don't know all of it, but I think there's going to be more involvement with the planning board and other boards.
And then my second question is, did you send that on to the Coastal Waters Committee?
This I had shared it with the harbor master and asked him to pass it on to anybody that he felt needed it. I'm not sure whether he did or not. Or no. Justin, do you guys recall receiving this?
No.
No.
We saw it. Or I saw it. On the website.
Jen?
I was just, then the planning board will put something together for this.
Say that again.
Okay.
I was exactly speak to that. It is a requirement of the shoreland ordinance that any such application has to go first to coastal waters. So any such application to build a pier has to go through the code officer, and it has to go through a process, first to coastal waters, who makes a recommendation, then the planning board has to have hold a hearing on site plan review to talk about the impact of the public hearing, public comment, specific list of criteria, all that kind of thing. If the planning board approves it, then it goes to the select board for working out permit. Bit of redundant process, but they can design that way. And I think there should be a policy on our case that something like this automatically goes to coastal waters in addition to the select board. And that just not just give it, but to make sure it goes to coastal waters. The only other thing I would offer is that we really should send a comment for May 15, just stating that we expect to see a permit before anything is built that or design finalized. They need to go through site plan review. They need to apply for a building permit, and the code officer will take it from there to coastal waters and then the planning board. I would ask that you write a letter. That we have the administrator write a letter to that effect to this agency in response to their public notice period.
I agree.
Okay. Paul?
Thank you, Bob. I think it's important that the town provide a formal response to the Bureau of Parks and Lands about the submerged lands lease, also reminding them about the process of the town. The only other thing I'd like to bring to everybody's attention though, is we all know Hope Island is zoned island residential. And right there on their application, they say this pier is for commercial use. That's a paradigm, that's a whole shift and change with Hope Island. So I hope the town of Big Island takes this very seriously, because that word commercial has big implications.
Thanks for pointing that out.
That would be a good thing to include in the letter.
Yeah.
To point out that this proposed project is in the residential zone. That the limited residential overlay of the shoreline zone.
And I think it would be appropriate to copy the applicant. So we should send the letter to, Euro Parks and Recreation, or whatever they are here. The submerged lands people, but we should copy the applicant. Which is whatever it is,
FLS business.
Correct. You know what you got to write?
What?
Do you know what you got to write?
Yeah, I can figure it out.
happy to review it if you want. before it goes.
If you have, yeah, if you can send it to Carol and Bob, then you get that, make the adjustments if
Yep.
need be.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
And thanks for noticing that.
When you're ready.
Next thing is the Indian Island update. And in the packet is the information that was shared by Indian Island, just giving a general update about where things stand.
Is that on the agenda?
No.
Am I?
It's in town.
It's in the.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry. I'll send it. Yep.
In here, there's a brief update as far as what they're looking to do with storm cleanup and moving things forward. And there was a suggestion that they can attend the one of the next meetings, so their communication could be started about closing out the road maintenance agreement. And then also there should be discussion that should start about figuring out what the parking situation is going to be up on top of the hill.
Bob.
Can't remember, did we decide to go forward with a survey of that area?
There is not an official.
I don't think we had an official motion. I thought she was gonna look into if somebody had one. God, talked about this too many times, so, Bob.
Well, they point out that Owen Haskell has done a bunch of surveys in that area, which, you know, how they do their work. The more reference points they have in the immediate area, the easier and cheaper a survey is. I would make a motion that we engage Owen Haskell to survey the road front of the two parcels that adjoin the upper end of that road from the center of the road extending toward the Indian Island property by a distance of approximately 100 feet. And that we get a copy of that survey once they've done it, so we can then go forward with plans for parking in that area.
All right. There's a second.
I'm sorry, was there an amount?
No, but there should be. Not to exceed $5,000.
Right. What do we have in our? The survey.
I will second it for discussion.
Yeah, I would propose that it come out of the hopefully renamed and repurposed Indian Island account.
So that would have to happen after town meeting.
Yeah,
No,
You don't think so?
Yeah, I don't think we can use the bulk.
Because the wording in the Indian Island retaining wall
oh,
doesn't,
because the wording wouldn't fit.
Correct.
I don't think so. No.
If
no,
we wanted to, I guess before we could engage him, we have to know how we're going to pay it.
yeah,
Yeah.
If we wanted to move forward more quickly on it, then we'd have to find a different account to take that out of.
correct.
We have money in.
Last
waterfront.
time you used coastal access fund and there's $6,400 left in that account.
Go ahead, Kizzy.
I think,
Go ahead, Carol.
So I'm not opposed to spending some money on doing a survey, but I kind of want to, if they're coming to the next meeting, is that the game plan?
Well, there's a suggestion that they would be happy to do that, so.
So I would prefer to have them come to the meeting. We can make the motion at the meeting if we feel compelled, but I don't want to just appropriate money without really understanding where we're going here.
Okay,
That's my.
Jen,
I agree with Carol. I think we need to hear from them and to make sure that they're still on board with parking and all that other stuff before we jump into a survey.
so the issue with them being on board with parking is it's not their land. So the reason for the survey is to see how much land the town actually owns in that area.
But they still,
That's-
against, parking, or I think it's the logical step to, instead of jumping ahead.
Bob,
Yeah, all the conversations of the working group, once they came to their recommendation or their decisions as to what to do with the lower portion of it, they're 100% in favor of the town working with the two landowners up there at the top of the road to make the parking more safe for parkers, pedestrians, and drivers by.
And
We
those
can,
two landowners are,
Corky and Carla Clark, and the heirs of Sam and Sally.
and I don't see any harm waiting until the 17th.
Yeah, you're right.
If we get an update, then I don't see a harm in that.
Well, I would.
There was
I would
no,
say
there was no
we're
second.
still in- Mark second.
Oh, he did, all right.
Well, you can withdraw your motion.
But the one reason to move ahead with it would be the degree to which surveyors have a very long lead time these days.
Mhm.
And the public safety issues are gonna be there 3 or 4 weeks from now. When people start showing up, parking at the top, going down there. We got by with it last year as it was. Without any complaints from the landowners. But I think moving forward with scheduling the survey is a show of good faith in the direction of making it a safer area. I would not withdraw the motion, but I'm happy to have it voted on.
Karen,
I don't have any problem with the town administrator contacting the surveyor, finding out what their availability might be, what an approximate cost might be, but I don't feel comfortable appropriating funds until we hear from the, till we discuss it as a board. Give the public an opportunity to weigh in also.
Good point.
But I mean, we could be prepared at the next meeting to appropriate a certain amount of money if we know exactly what it is, and we could get a handle on what the schedule is.
Now I withdraw my motion.
I don't think we need a motion for that action.
No.
So we're asking the town administrator to talk with Owen Haskell and see what their schedule might be and what the cost might be for that work.
Yeah, and unless it should be someone more, it could be you or Bo who maybe have a better idea. I don't know, because we know exactly what to ask. I wouldn't know.
It would be the same email, similar to what I emailed him about India or about Venice Cove.
I think he would need to know the approximate area though, and maybe you could give an idea. I would coordinate with Bob, I guess, maybe just copy Bob on the email.
yeah, we can go from that telephone pole at the Ballards to the other side of Indian Point Road. That's all we need. As far as what the town owns in that width, it's part of the width of the road, I mean. Probably 20,
So the purpose of this is to figure out what the town ownership is.
correct. And then we can go from there as far as asking or coming up with a plan to, we're gonna take, or not take, but we're gonna propose, we take 10 feet by 50 of your land and then draw up an easement that way. Then the land will have to be surveyed once more. Go ahead, Mark.
So just to clarify, we're simply asking our town administrator to make contact with Owen Haskell to see what their availability might be, to see if they might be interested in surveying that general area for us, and maybe a rough cost. But I think after next week, or hopefully soon, we may know whether we plan to park 5 cars, 10 cars, 7 cars, or that can make a difference about what.
So the point that they would make, the point that they made repeatedly in the working group sessions was they have no input on the number of cars whatsoever. They don't, Indian Island does not have any control nor interest in the parking on the road. In the past, what's happened is there's been a limit of 5 down in the conservation area.
That's why I use that number.
Yeah, And what we laid out last summer, so in the past, there was 5 down below, and if there was overflow, theoretically they parked along the road. And you can park along the road pretty much anywhere in the day. But once we got to a point where there was no 5 parking spots down below, then whatever few cars there were up above was that and more plus 5. And it became a bit of a rodeo up there. The working group, though, would say they have nothing to say about how many parking spaces there need to be up there. That's up to the town. And, you know, does the town want to limit it to only 5, or does the town say, here are 5 designated spots, but we need to come up from a public safety and traffic management standpoint. We need to come up with those recommendations, not them.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to hear their input on it. I don't think they should, you know, personally, we don't want maybe 10 spaces. I have no idea. I just would like to have a conversation with them.
And again, I would say that what they told us in the working group was they have no input. I'm happy to wait till the next
Okay.
meeting and let them say that.
Okay.
All right. Do you retract your motion?
Yep.
All right. Moving on.
Last thing on the TA report is, just for your information. Board of Adjustment and Appeals received an appeal. There should have been a notice attached, in your packet as far as the details. All the notices were sent out to abutters, and planning board and board of selectmen and,
You may have gone in the mail actually already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, there was a notice in the packet?
No, it was
We got it in the mail.
Oh,
And on here it says the 27th, it's gonna be Thursday, May 25th at the hall. And then there's all of the details, it's quite a thick application, it's on the website. If you wanna see the details of that.
All right, any questions on that?
It's,
Oh.
you said Thursday, you said it's May,
Thursday, May 25th at the hall,
at what time?
6 p.m.
They're usually at 5 p.m.
6 p.m. would be better. 5 p.m.
It is one, yeah, sorry, 5 p.m.
So Thursday, May 25th at 5 p.m. at the hall.
Right.
All right, any other questions? All right. Anything else, Pete?
Not under the team report.
Moving on to the treasurer's report.
So in your packet, you have, treasurer's report with the expense and revenue summary through the end of, March. The reconciliation is done through the end of March. There's really, doesn't appear to be anything too concerning about where the budget is at this point, with the exception of the legal, which you've known about. To date, we've expended $18,000. And there's about $5,800 that's left in contingency, so any bills going forward that come forth to you would have to be a motion to use out of contingency. At this point, I think that, especially with another Board of Adjustment and Appeals around the corner, I don't believe that there's going to be enough in contingency to get through the cost of March, April, May, and June. So I think that, unless we somehow stop any legal fee costs coming in, that, there should be a special town meeting to appropriate money. And looking at the dates, it would be, I would, need to draft up a special town meeting warrant. You would need to sign it, and then we would have to have that available for display for at least 7 days. before that can take place. And so based on the next meeting, if you are in support of this, my recommendation was to try to do it as soon as possible, which would be May 30th, which is a Tuesday. And what it would do is it would, the number could be, $10,000, 15, whatever, to try to feel a comfortable enough number to appropriate to get us through the rest of the year, to be able to have the funds to cover the budget for the legal expenses.
Any comments? Carol?
Where would the money come from?
From the fund balance.
From undesignated funds.
Any other comments? Bob?
What impact would that withdrawal from undesignated funds have on next year's budget's use of undesignated funds?
I spoke to Marjorie about that, and she said that the number is so minor that it's really not going, unless if you're looking at like $50,000, then, then that would question what the recommendation undesignated fund is to offset the taxes, but she said if it's, $10,000 to $15,000, then it should be okay.
Does that mean that if we were going to ask for 150 for next year's budget from undesignated funds, but we vote in this special town meeting to take 15 out, that we can still ask for 150?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So do you need, oh, sorry, Jen.
Having our town meeting is what, June 10th, is that correct? And it just seems like that's so close. Why couldn't we do it then?
We can, the concern that I have is, we have not received our March legal bill. And we should be getting that within the next couple of days to a week, which is probably gonna, it's been in a couple $1,000s, every month, the last couple of months. Once we pay that, then, we're looking at needing to pay March, April, May, and June. So I don't know if the June 10th is, we could try, and then I could talk to the lawyers to see, hey, can we, I think from the town perspective, from the office perspective, that would be great. We would have 2 separate warrants. But there would have to be some discussion with the attorneys to see if they could, give us a 60-day lapse to pay for that, because I think pushing it any later, we're gonna have stack of bills that are gonna be sitting that have to be paid that we're not gonna have the money to pay.
I'd be in favor of, having a discussion with the lawyers.
I'd be happy to do that.
Carol?
Yeah, I agree. I think the cost, I think we should save the time and energy. And I gotta believe they'd be willing to consider that, or even if we have to take an interest on an invoice for a month, just so that we could delay. I guess I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. The legal in the budget right now, the latest budget printout, the legal costs are current as of when?
So are you talking about what's in here? In the expense report?
Yeah.
So what is in the expense report is up until the end of March. But what is not reflected on that is the 2 bills that,
Because we saw those bills, I thought, right?
you saw them, and you made a motion to authorize for them to be paid out of that, and then they're on the warrant. And then we haven't, that warrant hasn't been posted because you haven't signed it yet for those funds to be shown as expended on this report. Because with the warrant, we don't authorize those funds until you all sign those warrants, and then we post the warrants.
So the money coming out of contingency is for the bills that were received in April for the legal stuff, which included Mary Costigan, right?
Correct.
But we haven't actually, but those should be able to be paid fully out of the contingency.
Yes, and after those 2 bills, there's gonna be a balance of $5,826 left in contingency, and we haven't even received the March bill.
When you say the March bill, that's what's confusing me, because you just said those were
Paid for
paid
contingency.
through March. So do you mean the April bill? I'm confused.
Paid till February.
Well, that's my question.
So March 1st, whatever invoice that we, not, whatever warrant that we got signed, the
The-
last one was up to February.
They were those bills covered the
Unless I'm-
expenses to the end of February.
Didn't Mary Costigan, wasn't that March?
I believe the Board of Adjustment Appeals was sometimes in February, but I can't really speak to that. I would. And so the two bills that you authorized to pay out of Selectmen's contingency was to pay up to the end of February. We have not received the legal bills through March, for the March bill. Because it's only I'm sorry.
It's the end of-
I think it's the end of, I'm a whole month.
That's what I'm asking.
Sorry.
What might be
So-
helpful, so we don't drive everybody nuts, is maybe you could just tabulate kind of where we are, what we've spent in this fiscal year, and what we still have outstanding, you know, because it's hard to follow in discussion, and I think it would be helpful, because that would also help us maybe decide.
And I just totally confused you. You're right, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So to date, including the ones that you authorized for contingency, to pay out
Right.
contingencies, between the legal fund and the contingency, $18,174 has been spent on legal fees.
And that takes us through the month of,
Through the end of March.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
We have not received the April bill.
okay,
And there is a total of 5,826 left in contingency to cover April, May, and June. Sorry, that was a whole month off. That's my fault.
that makes more sense.
So if we can go make it to town meeting contingent on if the lawyer allows us to,
I can email them and see if they would be okay with it. I
And then
can
we would have-
imagine that they would be totally supportive, in which case, that the town meeting, there would be two separate warrants, because you
Right,
still voted to appropriate money for the current fiscal year versus the new fiscal year.
so not only do we have to check with our town attorney, but we have to check with if the DOA is gonna get their own consultant for this one or not. We need to know that.
Well, I don't think we need to know. I mean,
Well, if they are, that's gonna be an expense.
Right.
And then we either have to get in touch with them to see where they're willing to wait. If the cost is gonna be, I doubt the cost is gonna be,
well, if they-
$5,000, but
That,
just.
that hearing is at the end of May.
Yeah.
We're gonna have town meeting on June 10th. That's plenty of time to make this happen and still pay the bill on time.
Just thinking ahead. just thinking
Right,
ahead.
but I mean, I don't think it's a problem
Right.
if, and I guess, just to add, I hope the Board of Appeals will avail themselves of some legal expertise at the initiation of this thing, so that I think it would benefit everybody for them to have that expertise.
Okay, Bob? Okay, so this- Right. Any other discussion on this?
Got it.
Any
Sorry.
questions for the town administrator about the treasurer's report? Yes.
Just the last sentence, you said it may be wise to add more legal to next year's budget. So in addition to what we're suggesting the 23,000, you think it should be more than that?
I think it's worth having a conversation during the budget discussion. I
just
mean,
wanted
in
to
the 6
clarify
years that I worked with the town, there were very few Board of Adjustment appeals and legal expenses, and
Okay.
if this is the trajectory now, and we've expended almost $23,000.
Yep.
Maybe it's a discussion to add a little bit more, but that's for you to decide.
Yep.
Any questions on any of the other monthly reports from Harbor Master, Fire Department, or anything like that?
Well, I just think it's great that the fire department replaced all the AEDs. I mean, that's great, and I think maybe having just taken a class where I learned how to use one, because I wouldn't have known how to do it, might be worth suggesting that, you know, we offer some training to the community, because you don't have to be particularly, I mean, it's pretty easy to use, and I wouldn't have known how otherwise, so. And I'm, you know, if they want to bring a third party in to do it, I'm not saying that the fire department has to do it themselves, but I think it would be good to have a training sometime this summer, or open to the community. But I'd like you to say thanks to them, because I think that's awesome.
But
Yeah, and I'd like to say that even though it was expensive, the Shelter Logic building up there that the ambulance is now in looks great. And I'd like to thank everybody that was involved. I know the boatyard gave some stuff. I know that Nathan Dowdy did some stuff, and the volunteers of the department assembled it. And it's a good looking structure for now. It looks good. They did a good job.
all right, Jen,
And I just wanted to comment on the Bennett's Cove cleanup. And I know that Stephen Todd did a lot for that. And I think he went a little bit above and beyond and did some extra cleaning. And I don't know who else might have helped or been a part of that, but I think it's a great thing to get it spiffy again.
right? Right, Bob, what you got there? I'd like to thank Public Works for being there during the storm, after the storm, the power outage, and having CMP to come here in a timely manner, have power running quickly. Carol, do you have any, do you want to give an update on your committee meeting you just had? Didn't you
On the
just have-
climate committee?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm trying to let the committee do their thing, but they had a public meeting to sort of just explain what the process is. They did it virtually. And they had, I don't know, 30, I can't remember, 30 people, something like that. Pretty good turnout. And so they just explained what they're up to now. And so the next steps, they're starting on a greenhouse gas emission study. Then this summer, we have a pretty major groundwater study that you'll be hearing about, but I haven't, that's my problem. And then in the fall, they'll be doing a vulnerability assessment, but it's good we jumped in on that round of grants, because it's still delayed for this next round. So it was lucky for us that we did that. It's a good committee. They're working pretty hard and communicate really well and use all kinds of online tools. And I think they've been a good committee, and they've kind of gotten a groove with Chris now, I think, on how to, you know, stay in the loop. So anyway, I think it was good.
All right, Mark?
Could I have permission to ask Coastal Water something?
Yep.
Justin, did you tell me that you guys are starting to work on a future float plan for the town?
Yeah, it's in the process.
So you're talking to people that build floats or know how to build floats, and you're gonna come up with some kind of a plan and bring it back at some point?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Speak, anything else? All right, moving on to regular business. 23-040, to take any actions from the public hearing for special amusement and the licenses. For some reason, I cannot say that word to save my life. All right,
I'll make a motion that we grant I don't know if I need to list them, the special amusement and victuals license for the Big Island Hall Community Center, the Big Island Boatyard, Dowdy's Island Market, Second Wind Farm, Two Birds Cafe, and the Big Island Inn.
so can I add contingent on a,
Oh,
uh,
amended to say contingent on a completed fire inspection?
Yeah.
so, thank you. All right, any comments on that? Any comments from the public? All right, all in favor? All right, all staying. All right, moving on. 23-041 to hear an update on the harbor management and access grant and take any necessary action. So I'll pass that on to Justin if you want to give us an update on that.
Yeah, sure. Did you send them the notes I sent you, or do they have any information, or start?
I didn't get her,
Okay,
so.
all right, well, a couple weeks ago, a grant opportunity through the Maine Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Parks and Lands, came up, and Coastal Waters thought this might be a good opportunity to, possibly replace a float. It kind of coincides with our conversations lately that our floats aren't maintained well, they need work, et cetera, et cetera. So long story short is the maximum grant amount is 15,000, and we want to write the grant, and in order to do so, we need state approval for a 25% match up to $5,000, which would come from the grant matching funds. So that's what we're here to ask, if that makes any sense at all.
All right. So sorry, I didn't get your email till, well, I did get it, but I didn't get a chance to read it.
The one from her?
The one from her, yeah. Bob,
The specific use of the grant money is what?
It's for coastal waters. There's a lot of requirements, but yeah, it's basically, coastal waters and great ponds. So for us, coastal waters makes sense, and then it's for, access facilities, floats, ramps, stuff for new construction, or repairs,
all right.
you know, it doesn't cover.
So that's your, thank you for what you said.
With this, we can buy a new float to replace an old one, but new, it's not for new construction, that's for engineering.
Okay, so we potentially use it to buy a new float.
Yeah, that's what our goal is.
Gotcha.
So Herb did put a email together with a little bit of information on it. If you don't mind me reading it, Herb.
I can read it for you if you don't want.
If the board wants us to move ahead with this application, we would, one, outline the maintenance plan. Justin is working with Scott Dyer. Two, bring the outline to the CWC for review and approval prior to the 5/17 meeting. Three, submit the completed application to the board by 5/12 for the board's approval on 5/17. Four, submit the application to the Board of Park and Lands by 5 PM on May 19, 2023. So possible motion, move to authorize either Vika or Justin, and probably Vika anyway, to submit the application to the Harbor Management or Access Grant Program in the amount not to exceed $15,000 and a match in an amount not to exceed $5,000 from the grant matching reserve, $9,040. Funds covering the costs until reimbursement and any additional cost to come from the floats and ramps reserve account, $9,920. The total cost of the project will not exceed X amount of dollars. And then he gives the float balance and the grant matching balance. The only thing I have with this motion is the grant matching funds. I think we're expending most of those. Are we expending like $25,000 for the, well, wasn't it for a survey, a grant matching that you just did?
For
For,
the
I
grant
can't
that you
remember.
already got last year. So I don't know whether that's been taken out yet or not.
The
So,
grant that we
And that's
are
25,
waiting
right?
to work on with, the, Weston and Sampson.
Mhm.
Part of that grant requirement is a $25,000 match,
And that hasn't been
and
taken.
that has not been taken out of that.
okay,
How much is in there now?
27.
28,000.
But there also, so there also hasn't been an official motion to expend that match either.
So. Okay, well, Carol,
Just what is, so, what is the timing on paying that match?
Yeah, that was fine.
25,000. That gets paid directly to the consultant?
It gets paid to them. The work has not started and selectmen to this date have not made a motion to authorize a $25,000 expenditure from grant fund match.
Right, but I mean, we don't need to do it in the near future.
The way things are going, correct.
A couple questions. One, how much did we add to grant for next year?
20,000.
Okay. And two, the match for the water project you just read, I would think doesn't necessarily have to come from grants. It could come from other reserve funds. It could come from one of the two funds that we have aimed at floats and ramps and that kind of thing. So I would consider amending their motion to take the money not from grants, but from that specific fund that's aimed at grants.
okay,
So we have 27.
And we're
90, 20.
yeah, floats and,
Sorry. Floats and ramps, we have 20, almost 20.
And we added 5 for next year.
yeah. Mark,
I'm gonna have an issue with taking it out of floats and ramps where it's not really for the floats and ramps. It's for a grant purpose. My preference is gonna be to take it out of the grant matching fund.
so right now, we're not, yeah, that was my question that I was trying to pose to Carol and Navika, where we're standing with that to expend that out of there. So if there's no immediate plan to do it before town meeting, then we
I
should
don't
just
know.
take it out of there.
I guess I thought we were gonna hear from them.
Well, it's pending on when the work is gonna start with Weston and Sampson and what their request is. I don't have a time frame. I don't know, but for all I know, in a month, we have to. Things start rolling and that money has to, I'm not sure the timeline.
Okay, Bob?
Couple things, Mark, if I can ask Mark a question.
Yes.
We're talking about using the grant money to buy a float. It's a match, but what that match is for is to buy a float with 15,000 money that's granted to us and 5,000 from the town. So I would think that grant matching funds would be used for grant matching when we don't have a specific fund already set up for that specific purpose. Whereas in this case, we do have a fund set up for the specific purpose of floats. So that's one thing to think about. Relative to the other question, my experience with consultants, they're not gonna ask us for the grant match until well after work has been done. They're not gonna bill us until they've done work. So, but I would still propose that we take it out of the floats account, the floats and ramps account. Even though it's a grant match, what it's being used for is floats and ramps. I would suggest taking out floats and ramps.
Ted, sorry, I'm reading this.
I think it should come out of floats and ramps.
Okay,
I agree.
so if I read this right, you need $15,000 plus the 5,000 matching grant?
Up to, it says, not to exceed. We haven't got a hard estimate. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No.
Well, you need the $15,000 or just the
We
$5,000?
need,
I'm just,
we haven't got a hard estimate from Scott Dyer yet. Justin's working with it. When we know what the project's gonna cost, we have to do a 25% match on whatever we ask for grant. The maximum we can ask for is 15,000. So we're assuming that the worst case scenario, that's what we'll do, is get $15,000 with $5,000 match, that's 20,000. Cost more than that, we'll take it out of the rest of the fund, that same fund. Is the idea. But if he comes back with a lower cost, we'll lower the amount from the grant and lower our match and match the quote.
It's likely to be much, not much less, but in the tune of like 3,400, but if we're using the terminology up to 5, just in case. So,
So you're just asking the board currently to match up to $5,000 out of it.
yeah, just so we can pursue.
That's all you're asking for. So $15,000 has nothing to do with it.
I mean,
It's a percentage of that, it's 25%.
No, I understand the percentage, but I'm saying we don't have to okay 15,000. So that's why the amounts in there just confusing to me.
Right.
Carol,
I'm just wondering, would it make more sense to wait until they have their quote? At the next meeting, we can agree that they can pursue this, and at the next meeting,
I got a quote at like 602, I could do the math, but I mean, a float's roughly $60 a square foot, so it's probably, a float's gonna be 14,000 total. You know, we can work with it, so and then the matching of that is much less than 5,000, so one brand new float, we'll call it 14, don't quote me here. But, yeah,
but what I'm not clear on, are you only asking for money for the physical float? Or are you also asking for some additional money to prepare a plan or pay Scott for all this advice? That's what I'm not clear on.
he didn't ask for money there, but we're trying to put together basically a whole package here, so.
Right.
It's starting, the deadline's in 2 weeks, so we put in quite a bit of effort, but we're hoping to get this approved. Keep going, and then get more information.
If we get a commitment from you that you want us to pursue this, that's what we're asking.
Right, so
And we'll put our notes to the grindstone in the next couple of weeks. If you guys will go along with the proposal here and think it's a good idea for us to pursue this grant. And
that's all.
so my question to you is that down the bottom of your motion, it says funds covering the cost until reimbursement. And any additional costs come from the floats and ramp reserve account. So you're asking more than, you're asking more than $5,000. You're asking for the cost of the float plus the matching grant, but you're gonna get reimbursed for the money.
we're asking for the town to support the replacement of the float at a reasonable cost. You can set the outside of that if you want. We're gonna try to get it as inexpensively as we can. We're gonna try to maximize the use of the grant to do it. So the language in here is intended to simply say, we want this project, we don't have a hard number yet, we will. And we want a commitment from you that you're willing to spend money out of the reserve account and that you're willing to support us applying for the grant. And we want you to understand that there's a $5,000 match.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So it sounds like also what you put in your language was that the town might need to loan the project, the amount that's coming from the grantor until the grantor pays for it. Is that correct?
Yes, like most grants, it's a reimbursement.
Correct.
So we have to expend the money, they reimburse us.
Correct. So
It
it's,
shouldn't be a big deal unless it's a short-term project.
Thank you. All right, so their motion, Bob,
I would make a motion that we approve up to $5,000, hopefully less, from the floats and ramps account to be used as the 25% match against the final applied for amount from the Ships and Harbor grant. I think it's called.
Harbor management.
Harbor management grant.
That one. Move to authorize,
Are you gonna read it? Are you gonna take it right from there?
yes,
Okay.
sorry.
move to authorize VCA or adjustments in an application to the Harbor Management and Access Grant Program in an amount not to exceed 15,000 with a match in the amount not to exceed $5,000 from the floats and ramps account.
9 to 20.
reserve account. Funds covering the cost until reimbursement and any additional costs to come from the floats and ramps reserve account. The total cost for the project will not exceed $20,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
You second, Jen?
Yes.
All right, any more conversations? Yes.
I'll support it just to move this along. I'd like to remind everyone that we're looking at possibly, I guess, considering replacing the ramp between the float that the CTC berthed at Stone Wharf and the commercial float. Whether we should or need to do that, I'm not clear on that. I've looked at the ramp myself. It's got some issues
Do we know what happened to that?
that run into, by the looks of it.
Oh, no.
Like,
Blue paint on it?
likely the trend,
Can you fix it?
likely the ferry boat, but I don't know that that's all that happened to it. It's bad. It was homemade by one of our past employees. It was made pretty well. But as you guys well know, aluminum will not take stress before it snaps. So my only point is, we may be getting an estimate for replacement down there of that. And we will have to make a decision, or I guess you guys and the harbor master or somebody will make a decision on whether to recommend replacing that or trying to fix it and limp along with it. That's my only point.
I did look at it, looks, somehow it's aluminum, but it's bent, it's not broken.
That's what I took from it.
But,
Personally, I would ask somebody to braze it and see if we can get along with it for a while. Whatever that aluminum welding is called. You know, correct.
well, Preston, I'll get a quote for one of those too. Is that? Someone's supposed to look at it.
Yes.
Yeah, because we're,
Yeah, they're supposed to come take a look at it when they do the work on Cousins. And I got word today that they're coming to start that tomorrow, so hopefully the estimate's gonna come in the near future. Because we've been waiting for a while.
Eric, I hate to ask for something else, but can they look at the piling situation that,
We finished.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, all right. So to me, $5,000 for $15,000 float sounds like a minor thing. So, but anyway, all right. So seconded, any other comments?
Quick one,
Any comments or?
just a very quick one. I would suggest substituting town administrator for Vika and Justin in that motion. Because we're parenthetical for you to select the one or the other. And I would address it as the title of the role, not the person.
If we could amend that to say town administrator.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? All in favor? Right.
Thanks for getting that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So
You need to do more of that.
I can't remember who was in the previous meeting, I commented about pilings being split and stuff. On the stone pier side.
I have to look at the bills. I don't know.
I know, I have to look at it. Anyway, if they're coming. All right, moving on to 23-042 to hear the presentation from the facility committee and take any necessary action. I will hand this off to Beth.
Thank you. This isn't per se a presentation, but this is, you have received the information that you charged us with to put together the cost for updating and improvement of the town office. And as we have said in the past, this improvement is hopefully to keep us there comfortably for 5 to 7 years. And as you know, in all the other meetings, we've talked about the overcrowding and how this has gone. So we worked hard, and I think you had made a motion in March for us to present this to you, but we have been working hard just to get all these put together with some costs and getting people to help us with the estimates. So you have it. We have also said if you look at the total report there, that we're assuming that the town public works would provide the trenching, so we haven't gone out and got an estimate for that. We also are under the impression that when we do this renovation inside, that the old construction or the old lumber and all that will be able to be put into our dump, and we won't be paying for that. So those are two of the things that are not included in that cost, and as you know, that could be very expensive if we had to take and pay for that. Do you have any questions on this?
Just one, were there competitive quotes yet for the big expenditure seems to be the office furniture? Do we have more than that one quote?
We, no, we do not.
Okay.
We went back and our first walkthrough and looking at what we needed was almost $28,000. And we can thank our town administrator who has gone and kind of lessened this and said, well, in the future, we'll be able to have a vault. We had an $8,000 filing system that would have taken up a lot less room, but then we found it wasn't fireproof, so we've learned a lot. The plus sides of this is, a big one is in opening up the having an entrance into the firehouse washroom that we'll be able to use when we have additional people in the office, so we've got that's big. And the other thing is allowing us to have a space for those three people that come in and out. And we've got a space and room available, so they aren't running around trying to find room. They have their own filing system. So we've worked hard and we've reduced the cost. And my understanding is that we have what's left over in the ARPA funds, and then Vika, if you want to take over the other part of where this other monies will come from.
I wasn't quite finished, but
Okay,
the company, I think if you found it, good job. When I was talking about refurbishers, there's the first tier office furniture company, Terminal Steel Case, Hayward, and then there was refurbishers, which are kind of the bottom feeders, if you will, of that industry. And then there's a second tier of manufacturers, those who make really good product. I know this company really, really well, great openings as far as metalworks. Really good product, great find.
well, and this is the other important thing, all the furniture, I hate to call it furniture, but systems that we've looked at, that's gonna be able to be moved on to when we expand into that being our town office. So that is, I think, super that you do that.
The one reason towards going with this company, because we did, I think you were part of the conversation with talking, we looked at costs and transforming it and those things. And part of this cost is they set it out, they put it all together, which made it that much more appealing and easier to, I think, figure out that cost wise, it was an efficient choice.
So the monies, because explain that with the ARPA fund and the other fund, And that this would not be in the upcoming budget, but it's available now, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So, obviously, it's the expense to, improve the facility, to withstand it for a few years, is gonna be a little bit more than what sits in the ARPA funds. But the new town office reserve is specifically, for these type of descriptions, and there is the money in the current reserve account that would cover the cost of this. So this improvement isn't with the consideration of having to appropriate any more money than what's already available. And then the bonus part of it, of course, is that ARPA fund is money that was provided to the town that doesn't have to be paid back and doesn't have any specific restrictions to it, and it's something that could be used for this purpose. So it would be taxpayers' money. It would be, $30,000 for a $60,000 project.
So the facility committee is recommending that we expend, I'm hoping this number is correct, 29,760 out of ARPA fund,
Correct.
and then expend the rest of their request for $60,000 out of the new town office reserve, which is approximately 29,760 out of, oh my goodness, where is it?
The new town office reserve, which has 38,867.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for the number, I'm sorry. 9131 out of capital improvements. That's what they're looking to do. Mark?
But wouldn't it be 29,000 of the remaining ARPA funds and 31,000 out of?
My math may have been
Yeah,
inaccurate, yeah.
well, the estimate is slightly under 60.
Are you asking to have available $60,000?
Correct.
So it would be more like taking 31,000 from the $38,000 balance.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers. I
just
don't
want-
know what's
That's
written here.
I'm fine, I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah, the total cost is
Yeah.
$60,000,
And-
which is, I think that's the whole point, is that, the facility's looking for selectmen's thoughts, whether they support this, if so, then,
And could I ask a couple
Yes.
more questions? And the contingency in here is $7,500.
Correct.
And when it says not included, I'm just using this as an example, any perforations up through the building roof. So that just means that we gotta pay a little extra for that same company to do that, correct? We don't have to find somebody else to do it.
That's my understanding, but I think it's a good question, and I will see. We can thank David Bruner for setting this all up, and I'd like to say that I think we're high, but I'm not gonna put a paycheck on it.
Yeah,
But, so I will ask that question.
yeah, it's not a big question. And then the upgrade of the 400 amp service is the $15,000 number from Cascade Electric.
That's correct. And that is one thing in this conversation that we beat this around, as you know, for what, over a year?
Yeah.
And a lot of the feeling of the committee, because we had people look at it, that we were okay for now, as long as we didn't add anything on it. And now you have broadband, who will be part of this whole complex. So I think that that's one of the important things that should be looked at, because when I asked Casco Bay Electric to give us an estimate, it took them, he said, I don't know if I can get it to you next week because I'm having a hard time with my suppliers on getting the parts that's needed. So what I'm asking is that somehow we come to an understanding of when if we do this, if you vote on this and say, then that's one of the things that I think we should set up because I don't know if that's gonna happen until they get their material. It could be next year. And I was under the impression with broadband that it's gonna be, how long is that gonna be before that's resolved?
Yep.
So it's something that you've got to think about.
Bob said.
So we're not really, if I understand it correctly from what I read, we're not really voting to approve the expenditure of money. We're voting to encourage you to go forward because you don't have firm quotes on most of this yet. This is budgetary estimates, not quotes, right?
They're pretty close to it, but, pardon me,
There were quotes in here.
The construction, I didn't see quotes on.
the quote, from
19,000.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
City demolition and the non-deck, yeah.
So this is a project shovel-ready budget. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was an estimate.
We had one estimate, but that is, that one that you're looking at in your packet is, it also gives all the detail. How many hours worked and so on and so forth.
Well,
Mark? Sorry.
I have a little inside information on the 400 amp service situation because I'm one of the customers, or my customer is one of the ones that are waiting for these parts. And I've talked to the distributor and 3 electricians in the last 4 days. And finally, the stuff is due to show up end of June. It was supposed to be end of March and then end of April. So it looks like it's going to, that type of stuff's going to start showing up. So that's the good news on that. And as far as the trenching of the line to the building, I agree with you. I think Public Works can easily accomplish that. I would just ask that when that trench is planned, that it be tastefully planned as it can be, so it doesn't just dig up the middle of the parking lot where people are driving in and out of the town office. And because those trenches and that type of old pavement are very hard to patch back in and make it stay.
Yeah, so my thoughts were doing the, where the flower bed is in the front and go across and in front of that cement ramp right to the lawn and then follow that all the way to the pole.
That would be great.
That would be the easiest path as far, or less disruptive.
Yeah, and I'd also like to thank the facilities committee and Beth for all of the work that's been done, because I know that they've been trying hard and we've been putting them off a little bit, but not, I don't think on purpose. I just think we're slow at everything.
Any other comments? Carol?
So just a couple things. One is, I tried to find the definition, you know, I was going through just like you, Rika, on the capital, and I couldn't find, I could find when the new town office account was set up, but I couldn't find a definition for that. Do you have that?
What I have is the improvement capital.
So I guess I just want to be sure it's consistent with what was intended by town meeting.
Yeah, so from what I.
Because there was a renovation fund, and then it looked like that got changed to exclude the town office, is that correct? Initially, there was a renovation fund for town facilities, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was account number,
So there's 2 different funds. There is a fund for, building facilities.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one that, if you look with there's a improvement language that was voted that I found. And then new town office, what I have was that it was a reserve fund for a new town office.
so you think it's okay to use it for renovation? I mean, originally, that's why I'm asking, but it's
No, I
not just,
understand.
I was just trying to get some clarity on that. The other thing is, if you use, you'll have 10,000 left in this account, right? And so what is the game plan going forward? I mean, I thought the money was sort of to plan for the town office, so is this gonna delay that work? Or how do you see this interfacing with the plans for the new town office?
Well, as a committee, in discussion, we have kind of looked at it as the facility in which the town office is now is improving that piece. Even though we know there'll be a second round of making that a bigger facility with a vault and all that. But this is the hopes of being able to use this as a facility, so we may move on to the fire and rescue department and be looking across the road and.
And I get that, but what monies are you gonna use to do that? Because you're not gonna have much left, that's my question.
In the future, we're hoping that you would add more money and that we'll be going after grants to improve and have the fire and rescue at the same time. It's like a $6 million project.
Right, but to do the planning part, which I guess, do you understand what I mean? I thought we sort of appropriate a certain amount of money to hire Port City. Is this gonna put the brakes on any work on that direction for the time being, so we can
No.
replenish the fund?
No, because the money that we've appropriated for that particular project, most of it has already been expended. There's a couple $1,000s that we're gonna owe to them to finish it off, and that is coming out of, most of it has already come out of that. So there isn't, I guess, we're not gonna run out of money out of that account. And the plans for a town office renovation and fire department renovation, most of that money has been expended.
And so
we
the
should
next
have
step
funds.
after that would be to do a more
Detailed plan, so,
And what's the timeline for that?
They, in their contract, are willing to put forward I cannot say, schematic design. We haven't got there yet. So we still have monies available to bring us to that point.
Okay, that was my point, okay.
And we need that to go forward to reach out for the monies as
Right.
you folks have suggested to
For grant.
to the Senate and other places. So we're very aware of that. We just so happen to have extra money because you agreed that we were going to go across the street and we didn't have to put the money into showing you how much it was gonna cost if we put them both in the same.
Right, so basically this, you can still get to the point where you could theoretically apply for, funds to build the full facility.
Yes.
Okay,
And
that was my question.
yeah, after finishing off our contract with Port City, we should have drawings of a new town, renovated town office, which is the existing fire department, and a whole new fire department facility drawing across the street.
And this renovation is consistent with those plans?
Yeah, and that was why we approached the Port City initially, and what they did is they had first kind of very draft sketches of both buildings. And then when we brought this forth to them, they went back to the drawing board, and any walls or holes that were intended for this improvement was in alignment with any future. So what they're recommending for the town administrator office now is gonna be utilized for something else in the future, but the whole point was to do the improvement in a way where we weren't gonna have to knock down any walls or have it cost any more, including the furniture. All of the furniture is designed in a way that it could be brought into the new and improved facility.
that's important, that's very important, because we have looked at this carefully so that we could use whatever we do now,
Right,
we plan to use in the future,
in the future renovation.
in the future
That
renovation.
they would align very well together.
The other thing, tonight with this update, because I know you have spoken to us about getting in contact with the Senate, Senator Susan Collins' office and other places. We are working with Port City, and they have been fabulous at providing us with information, and they have information on a grant that they helped another fire department work on. And Vika and Curtis and I are gonna be looking at that, because I think, Carolyn, you said we didn't have to have everything in order, but our hope is to get in the next 2 or 3 weeks, something in place and get that to all of the
Well, I
necessary
think
players.
this round is already passed, so it would really be for the fall of 23. But,
Yes.
you know,
But
but they did fund, or there are in the hopper, a bunch of fire stations, like 10 of them.
Our next thing is May 9th, we're going over to Yarmouth and look at their facility and talk to them and see. It is bigger. Buckfield has a fire department that Ralph's gonna speak to that's smaller, that got funds, so, we're on that.
Good.
Mark.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is there a project manager for this, and who would that be?
There isn't, that I know of. No one is designated to it.
So this is it's a gap that we've had before with prior projects that have gone south. And I think it's an important role for this. And it seems like the committee is the project sponsor maybe, or maybe the board is the project sponsor and delegated that to the committee, but these types of rentals is something that I had experience with from the developer side. And they go south very quickly without really careful project management.
I respect what you're saying. I understand, and I think that we've got some good people that are gonna be on this. And with David Bruner's help and his organization and how we look at things, I feel pretty confident that we can do it as a committee. When we get to the bigger things here of improving the fire or having a new fire and rescue facility and updating the town office, I agree with you. I hope there'll be a project manager that we will have on that.
Yeah. We did talk about that, about having somebody oversee the whole job, whether it was paid or not. That wasn't discussed. Mark?
Very quickly, if this passes, you'll have $7,750 left in the new town office, just for your information. And I'm assuming that fire and rescue is aware of this and on board with what's going to happen up there.
What has happened now is that they've had a meeting and they've all received the second round, I want to say, of how it all looks. They realize how costly it is. We also know that the town of Shebig, we're not asking for this next week. We're not asking it from a year from now. But if there's money out there and available, we want to be ready and organized to have that happen. So to answer your question, yes, the fire department is in line with this. So.
Thank you.
Mark, we have on the committee, Beth Putnam, Martha, Dowdy, Ralph, and
Chris will.
Chris Loader.
Yeah.
So there's a
I should
good,
have remembered that.
good fire department representation.
No, I think we wanted them all to be educated, and that's beginning to happen now, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town administrator on behalf of the Building Facilities Committee and to benefit this project proposed to us to expend all of the remaining funds from the ARPA money and up to $31,000 from the new town office reserve fund. And I don't have a number for that fund, I'm sorry.
931.
90 what?
931.
9031, up to 31,000 from that reserve account.
So, okay,
Second was Bob.
yes. All right, any other discussion? Any discussion from the public? All right, all in favor? All right, thank you. Thank you, Beth. Good job. All right, moving on to 23-043 to review the proposal from Weston and Sampson and take any necessary action.
Is there one?
I didn't see it.
No, what I created, and we've been back and forth, and they emailed me on Tuesday and said unfortunately they weren't able to provide the information in time, so. We put it on the agenda, being hopeful, but next time.
All righty, table it
Sorry.
until we get the information. All right, next item, 23-04.
Can I just ask?
Yes, Carol.
Did they give you a time when they will submit it?
They really were hopeful to get it to us by last Friday, and then Monday at the latest. Tuesday, they emailed me and said that they're really hoping to get it to us in the next few days.
Okay, so if we don't see it by Friday, I hope you will follow up with them.
I will. We've been communicating pretty well together, so I think that I'm hopeful. But yes, I
All right. Moving on to 23-044, final budget presented for review and approval. All right, I'll hand this over to Mark, since he's been our budget select person.
Thank you, Bo. It's my opinion, this may not be the final presentation of this budget tonight, in my opinion, because I don't feel that we may be where we want to be and need to be, given the information that we've received from our town administrator and our assessor, meaning I don't think that we are in an accurate number place with the tax calculation sheet and the revenues as it matches up to the budget. And having said that, I'm going to ask Carol to pass on what she has found and had for a conversation with our assessor so far, if you would, Carol.
So to bring everybody up to speed, we were just trying to estimate what the tax rate would be based on the current budget, which we used to do pretty regularly, and we haven't done it for a while. So prior to going to town meeting, just so that we have an idea. And so yesterday, Vika sent us an estimate that I understand you worked on with Jackie on the phone. And so I was a little surprised at the significant increase in the mill rate, which would have been about 10%. A tax increase, which, given what we thought the budget was at, I was confused about that, and I spent a fair amount of time trying to figure it out, but couldn't really. So today, I asked Chris to send me last year's mill rate sheet to sort of for comparison, and then I also talked to Jackie, and the major difference seemed to be that, and I mean, I went through the numbers quite a bit, but I couldn't get everything to match exactly. But in I just want to pull the sheet out. I have too many pieces of paper here, but in last year, so one of the things that's complicated here, and Jackie explained this to me, is that, for example, last year, she bumped up the assessments. So the mill rate actually went down. So you can't just look at the mill rate. Our taxes went up, but the mill rate went down. And it's because if you go back to your tax bill, the actual assessed value of the property went up. And so one of the things I think, especially right now, that we need to keep careful track of is kind of how those numbers are moving, so that we can really be clear about what the tax implications are for property owners. And so I went through those numbers with Jackie. I'm pretty sure I understand sort of the trajectory. So we're in fiscal year 23, and fiscal year 22, we had a mill rate of 13.5. Then Jackie bumped up the assessment for this current year for all of our properties, just statistically, and then the mill rate dropped to 12.5. So that's where we are right now. So then the mill rate that we got yesterday was 13.8, which would be a pretty significant increase over 12.5. And to do that calculation, Jackie explained she left the tax valuation in the same, you know, it was slightly different than last year because we had additional properties come on board, but it's basically the same basis as 2020 as this year. But when I looked back on the previous forms, what was particularly different was the amount for the anticipated deductions, especially other revenues. And in last year's calculation, which I'm trying to find here, it was on the order of 500,000. But on this tax form, it wasn't, it's on the order of 300,000. And that includes, according to you, Vika, right, the 150,000 of undesignated funds. So that just didn't make sense to me that there would be such a big differential. So going back through the budget, it looks like, oh, here it is. So last year, for this current tax year, the other revenues were 553,000 in round numbers. And that was with a mill rate of 12.5 and an overlay of 57,000 for people who care about those things. And our total assessment for taxes was 3,723,911. And the amount we had to raise for property taxes, which is the number that matters to us, was 3,132,000. I can give you guys copies of this, 161. So the difference for this year was that the amount we were going to have to raise for taxes gone up by 400,000. So it was 3,510,341. So I went back through the budget. I think there's an error in the revenue calculation because what wasn't in mine is, and Vika, you can check this, but was the excise tax wasn't in, I couldn't find it in the budget calculation, at least in the budget that you sent me. So basically it was $119 for this upcoming fiscal year as opposed to about 100,000, which is what it's been. So in 2020, in 2022, it was 127,000. In 2023, we're up to 110 already. So it's got to be, I would assume, $100,000 for next year. So I plugged in that number and came up with 462,000 in round numbers for that allowable deduction, which basically lowers what we have to raise. And I came up with a mill rate. You know, there's a range, a mill rate between 13 and 13.7. So that's closer to what I would expect, but even still, it's a little bit higher than I expected. So the bottom line is I think we need to go back and check the numbers. And personally, I don't think we should approve the budget till we're 100% clear on what what the homeowner tax implications are, because that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. Last year, we had undesignated funds of 175,000 from the town, and was it 125,000 from the school?
125.
So we basically applied quite a significant amount of undesignated funds, like from the savings bank, to cut down on the taxes. And we are applying, the municipal side is applying 150,000. Right now, the school side is not applying any. And so that is one differential. But we maybe want to rethink that a little bit, or think about whether we have to adjust the budget, because it's, that's kind of where we're at. And, but the thing that Jackie said, what she will do at the end is once we pass our budget, she will actually provide an adjusted valuation again. So all of our valuations will go back up. So the tax rate will probably actually go down, but our tax bill may still go up, if that makes sense to everybody. And so she's trying to keep it in this little window, she explained, between 90 and 100%. Because if we drop below, right now, we're at about 73%. Based on what the state estimates our valuation should be, where we're at. And when we're down that low, we don't get full value on the homestead exemption. So she tries to bump it up so we can all get the max on the homestead exemption. And there's like 150 people that take advantage of that.
Is that below 75% when that happens?
It's below 90%. When
Oh,
it goes
below
below
90?
90, it's incremental. As you
Wow.
go lower, you lose more. And so she's,
Okay.
she's,
So I'd like to thank you, Carol, for doing all of this and contacting Jackie. And I'm asking the select board and the town administrator how we feel about this and how we think we should proceed at this point. Go ahead.
So I think I followed everything you said, but two issues we need to follow up on is how did the excise tax, which had been in 2022, 128K, 2023, 110K, 2024 is $119. So I'm hoping it's a typo, but we need to find out what the real number is for 2024 on excise tax under revenue. And secondly, I don't know if we can do this, but would it make sense to talk to the school about their logic for not bringing any,
I think because they don't have any. I did ask somebody on the boat this morning, but then I also understand from Vika that they may be reevaluating their budget. Is that it?
The excise tax is a typo that I did catch, and last year's budget, 2022, they had significant unexpected expenses for special ed transportation. So they had to pull a lot of unexpected funds and went over budget, so they do not feel that with not having had the audit for 2022 and with the way their overall budget went, they didn't feel comfortable to pull any reserve money or undesignated ones.
yeah, and that particular budgetary challenge on the part of the school is resolved. There's another way to take care of that that's happened, if I understand it correctly. So I think it makes sense to hold off for as short of a period of time as we possibly can. Our next meeting is 2 weeks out.
Yes.
But Vika, are they reevaluating their budget? Or is their budget final?
The email that, was it this morning? I briefly checked my emails today from Jeff saying that they're gonna have a meeting next Tuesday. And there might be some changes that they might bring, so.
So I guess what I'm asking you all is, if we're going to hold off tonight and not call this the final budget, which I'm prepared to do, what is our plan? Are we going to ask to get more information or chat or talk, meet with our assessor? What would we do?
I think we've got to go back through the current budget and make sure the numbers are solid. I went back to the warrants, tried to recreate the budgets from the warrants and found I couldn't get the numbers to work out. So maybe it's me. But I think we need to check the numbers in our current 2024 fiscal year budget and make sure they're solid, find out where the school's at. And then I think Jackie, I mean, we can meet with her, or, she can give us a new calculation. The only thing that's gonna change would be, our assessment isn't gonna change. I think the only thing that would change would either be whether we change our expenses or whether we change the revenues,
Mhm. And when she said to you that later on, she applies the final value of the town, and she may bring that
She said
up,
she will, yeah.
and that will benefit people that qualify for homestead exemption.
It's just so we can fully qualify, yeah. if she doesn't do that, then we can't get the full benefit, and it would, not be good for some people.
Mhm.
So, but I mean, we can meet with her, I'm sure she'd meet with us virtually if there's a value in that. I think, yeah,
Well, I'm not prepared to push a budget forward to the people
So that's your question.
Would it be a hard request to ask that Jackie be here at our next meeting?
I don't know what her availability would be.
She comes on the third Tuesday of the month.
which is the month, when is that?
So the one thing that you need to think about too is, once these numbers are approved, then it takes a decent amount of time to transfer all to a warrant, and then it has to go to the attorney, and then she needs time to go over it. And then it has to be approved by you and officially signed, and that has to be available for a minimum of 10 days before the town meeting. So if you bring this, if you wait to do this until the 17th, then it's really putting it a very tight space from how much time I will have to transfer it into a town warrant material, send to the attorney. And then there would have to be a special meeting set up just to approve it, because the following selectmen's meeting is, I believe it's June 7th, which would be at that point too late for the final approval of the warrant before the actual town meeting.
Yeah, so that's really, I'm sorry, Jen, that's really what I'm asking. If we don't push this forward tonight, I don't feel comfortable doing so myself. Should we plan on something next week? And what will the structure of that be? Will we ask our assessor to give us something, come to the meeting? How will we make this more clear and concise and wrap it up so that we're comfortable pushing this budget to our voters, or somewhat comfortable? Go ahead.
I was gonna suggest that tonight we go over this budget as we can, sitting here line by line. And then would it be helpful to meet next week, not wait till the 17th? And then maybe get Jackie's input, if that's what's needed.
Go ahead.
What specifically is it we need from Jackie that we don't now have?
I think nothing. I mean, I think maybe before, we need to recalculate. Once we know we have the numbers, then we need to recalculate the estimated tax rate. If it's still high, I mean, this is right now a 0.5 mill rate increase, is that right? Is that what I came up with? No, 0.7.
I thought it was 12.5 to 13.8.
No, that's what Vika had, but that's not correct. What I came up with, plugging in some different numbers that I think are more accurate, for example, including an approximate excise tax, I came up with, it's a range that you can pick. I came up with 13.2, so that's 0.7 above. It's basically on a $100,000 home, it's $73 per 100,000, it's $73. So to give you
So
it's up. It's just a matter of what we're comfortable with.
So I'm not sure, somebody else is better at this calculation than me, but if you said 1320, that's what you said?
13.23.
So, and we're at 1250
But
now.
I estimated the revenues, so I think Vika needs to give us a definite number on revenue, and then we need to make sure there aren't any other.
So is a 6 or 7% increase of the mill rate the same as a 6 or 7? No.
No, it would be,
Right.
great, we did that before. It's
Right.
point.
So if you
That's a
could,
5%, almost a 6%.
Yeah.
Right now.
I'm not saying,
Is that after correcting the excise tax? It's after correcting the excise tax.
And one of the reasons is that last year we put essentially 300,000 in undesignated funds towards the budget. This year, we're putting half of that. We could potentially decide as a board to put more. I mean, I went back through the audit and honestly, I'm gonna need some explanation. It's not like the previous audits, so I don't know what the number is.
go ahead.
Didn't I see recently that our undesignated balance is substantially above what the state requires?
No, Vika, so Vika, you said we have 605,924.
Right.
But that's as of 2021, right?
Yes,
So we don't know what it is right now, but it's
correct.
probably more. We don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I talked to Marjorie about it. We looked at these numbers, we looked at the policy, and having talking to her, she looked and said that from 2020 to 2021, the undesignated funds dropped by about $73,000. And so not having had 2022 audit, that it would be comfortable to do between 100 and 150,000, but try to be conservative and not try to do more. Just because according to our policy, it has to be greater than 16%, but less than 25%. So if you take, the $3.4 million budget or whatever it is, and, take 16% of that,
But isn't it just the
But it's only
operating budget?
It's only a town, so
it's the assessed, it's the net budget.
But it's the operating budget, right? Yes.
it would be.
So what is that?
For which year?
So to calculate the percentage, it would be the operating budget. So what is the operating budget is less than the whole thing.
Well, the town side, so you're leaving out the capital improvement budget, is that your point?
I thought we would, yeah, I guess it's not the debt service, and is it the debt? I asked that question in my email,
Yeah.
so I don't know what you're using for operating budget.
I don't have those notes in front of me, so I don't.
Roughly,
It's on the number, it's not.
roughly it would be $2 million, but that's pretty rough.
Well, I think it's 2.5 or something, right? I don't know, that's the kind, I don't know if we can decide this here, but I think that those are the numbers we need to be clear on. So we know how much money we might have available, because I think we might have a little more available in our town undesignated funds, and we could potentially bump that up if that was our goal, or we could adjust the budget by cutting something out.
So I'm asking the select board a couple of questions right now. One is Jen's question, if I can ask again, would you like to go through the budget tonight and look for places that would like to change? That's question number one. I think you said you would.
I don't want to do that.
I don't think till I know this, no.
I don't care either way. I don't care either way. It looks like we're gonna have to have another meeting anyway, so whether we do it today or next time.
Second question is, would you like to meet next week? And if we meet next week, we're probably gonna have that opportunity if we want it, correct?
It's just a budget meeting.
That would be my impression. That would be the only reason to me, because we're not getting it done tonight. Go ahead.
Is there a way that we can get these few critical questions answered by next Wednesday's meeting? And then at next Wednesday's meeting, do what we had hoped to do tonight, which is finalize the budget?
Can we
If that's the
identify what
case.
those are?
Well,
Can we identify what those are?
One would be to hammer down what we can do with undesignated funds. The second would be to correct the excise tax type of thing. And so those two things, I think, are the critical issues on the table.
well.
What I would propose we not do is go through the budget line by line next week. And because any changes that we make next week would then have to be recalculated before we knew what we were really doing impact wise. I don't think we should be deciding next week that it's final if we're also next week going through line by line.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
So the excise, it's a mistake. It should have been 119,000. And as far as the undesignated fund balance, I talked to Marjorie, she looked at the numbers. I don't know what else I can do or what else Marjorie could do to provide you a different number. So I'm not sure how.
I guess my question is,
Go ahead.
because so we can understand where we are in the range, is what is the operating budget that you're calculating the 16 to 25% on? What is the number you're using to calculate? And it's defined in the policy. I just haven't gone into it to try to figure it out.
I've been using 2.3 million. I don't
That
know.
sounds about right, but
Yeah.
that's, I mean, I'm
And
sure
six-
you know what the number
So
is.
16% of that would be about 370,000 if it went right down to 16%.
Right, so we have a lot of room.
And I'm just throwing these numbers out. I'm not saying they're completely accurate. And
So I think
20
that's an important question to answer.
And 25% of that would be about $575,000. So, go ahead.
Definition of operating budget as per the policy, as Pam pointed out, it's online. It's that part of the municipal and education budgets, so it's both, that include normal operating costs, but excludes contingency, reserves, long-term assets or liabilities, one-time extraordinary or emergency costs that may be part of an approved budget.
Yeah.
That's somewhat clear. But how that applies to this budget, which lines on this budget are part of the operating budget and which are not? I don't-
We just subtract contingency reserve. That's it, really. So, I mean, we can come up with a number, but it's not 3.8, it's much lower than that.
Go ahead, Paul.
I wanted to thank Carol for her explanation and the information that Jackie provided. He really brought to light to me, though, how much the Board of Selectmen does not have control over as far as this process goes, especially if the adjustment to the grand list for the escalation evaluation in the town last year was done. And even though our mill rate was reduced, the effective end result to people deciding was a tax increase, property tax increase. When you first started to speak, I thought it was going to be a positive situation this year. But then as you brought back into it, the assessor's right to go back and readjust for the homestead is a necessary element of it. A review of income, okay, is absolutely necessary, but the one question I didn't hear is what you five have control over is the amount of money budgeted and expenses in this town. And in order to hold the line on taxes, how much approximately, okay, order of magnitude, hundreds of thousands of dollars, how much does the current budget need to be reduced to hold the line on property taxes in this town?
About,
116,000.
I can give you.
And I only ask
On
because
on the municipal side or?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not asking about school, I'm speaking to the five of you, you have control of the municipal budget.
mhm.
But if the group is gonna sit down next week and make some tough decisions, I didn't know what your goal was, how far you have to go.
So,
Many of you I've heard over the years and recently speak to the fact that it's imperative we control tax rate increases in this category. I agree with that, I commend you for it.
So the current, I mean, the assessment is barely up. So the current tax rate is 12.5. So I can give you the number, but I mean, it's a couple $100,000 in that ballpark.
Okay,
Just on this, on the municipal side.
And it could either be done by, what we were talking about is applying more undesignated funds or lowering the overall budget. So the budget in, the previous year was in rough numbers, just so we're all talking about the same thing, was like 3.5 million, and this year it's 3.8.
Well, no,
That's about,
last year was 3.7, Carol.
Yeah, 3.738.
Sorry, 3.7. You're right. It's the undesignated funds that we're doing.
for last year was 3.7 combined education and municipal.
Yes,
This year so far is 3.8, we think, after adjusting for the 119.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's 100. Jen, how do you come up with 112? You,
Because I've argued with my husband about this for the last day and a half.
but it's more than that because we've only applied half as much. So we're gonna add that in. So it's basically, that makes sense. In other words, the
Because
budget's
the
only gone up
undesignated is not
that
part of
much,
the
but
operating.
but our revenues are also down. It's a double whammy.
Right. But as far as spending, I know it's not that simple. It's a great question, Paul. As far as spending goes, I believe the school budget's up around 98,000 or 97,000. And I believe this side was up around 15,000, but that doesn't take into account the revenue change evaluation so far not going up, right, Carol? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And the application of
Of undesignated.
undesignated funds from each entity, school and municipal. I know that's not a great
I think the
answer.
valuation doesn't matter. The valuation is just the plug that you put into the equation to figure out. It's the taxes that matter, and the taxes are specifically what we're spending as affected by undesignated fund contribution.
The revaluation.
Or what we're bringing in as revenue.
Right. And the revenues are always an estimate, and we tend to be conservative on the
Yeah.
revenues, but,
Which is why undesignated
And what,
funds build
you
up.
know, even though the mill rate went down last year, the budget went up significantly. So,
Right.
so, and this is still up a bit without the undesignated fund full equivalent. fund.
Okay, so where are we at for
We're gonna meet.
this week and next week? And if we meet next week, what are we going to be doing specifically with the budget? Are we going to go through line by line again? Are we going to go through division by division? Are we gonna go through the capital improvements again? We did that fairly effectively last week. Did some cutting and hacking, I thought, and a little few. Go ahead.
I think what might make sense is by the end of this week, if we could have some clarity on the two questions that Bob mentioned. So basically, if we could understand what our undesignated fund balance, it's a 605, but what percentage of our operating budget that is, because what the operating budget number is, so we can know where we stand. Then the second part of the question is, then once the numbers are solid, hopefully by the end of this week, we could have Jackie recalculate the approximate tax implications. Then we could have that at our meeting for next week to make a decision on whether we need to adjust the budget.
But you would also have to have any results from the school.
Yeah,
meeting.
so I don't even know how we can do that.
Are they meeting next week or the week after?
Meeting next Tuesday?
That's not on their schedule. It's a special meeting.
That's what the
So it's next
email said from
Tuesday.
Jeff, so I don't know any other details.
Because it would be, in my opinion, extremely beneficial to know if they're staying where they are or changing anything before.
So the three questions then are the two Carol's mentioned, plus what is the result of the school committee's meeting next Tuesday night. Those 3 questions would help us finalize a budget that we can then sign off on and push out.
So do we want to tentatively make a meeting date for next Wednesday, or do we want to make it? We can't keep making it later than that, because
No, I'd say let's meet next Wednesday.
6 p.m. Is the board in agreement with that?
That's the 10th.
Comments?
I have a children's school event that I was going to be attending that day.
Okay,
I can miss it if I have to, but I'd rather not.
we can probably have the meeting without your presence if you want to attend that. No?
Is there anything that says we have to meet on Wednesday and not Thursday?
No, that's why I was asking the question in the way that I asked it.
Yeah, I have
I don't-
Thursday's a common action.
I don't assume people's schedules.
I can do Wednesday, I can't do Thursday, but you
Yeah.
can meet without me.
I'm not sure I can do Thursday. It's something.
All right, stick with Wednesday then.
Did you have a question? I didn't acknowledge you. I'm so sorry.
I have a question about the increase in the school budget and offsetting that from the town budget. Is it customarily, is there, when one side goes up, it's a pretty enormous raise. Does the other side have to accommodate that in some way, or is it automatically the taxpayers are going to bear the brunt of that?
I'll start. I don't think there's any steadfast expectation or policy. I know that the school and the town, of course, we have our one joint meeting throughout the budget process, but I think we have tried to stay in touch with each other's budget needs, goals, and capital stuff, planning. And so I think from my perspective, there's always been an effort to find out what the school side from the town side is doing. And I think they've tried to do the same thing so that we don't double slam the taxpayers with 2 budgets that go up in one fiscal year for, many reasons or one reason, or that's my answer. Anybody else?
Well, and I would say that we don't have any control over the distribution within the town, but the school budget. In other words, it's up to them to decide how to appropriate their funds. So we can't go in there and say, you need to cut this out, this line item.
No, that's not what I was asking. I was asking that when their budget goes up, does the town accommodate by cutting the town budget in order to balance it out to the taxpayers?
We definitely try to work in cooperation. And for example, when they did the school renovation, the town did not do a large capital project at the same time for that reason. So I think we work together.
So would the school be aware now of the impact of their 90,000 plus increase on this budget? Would they know?
Are they aware?
Yeah.
I've talked to 3 different board members in the last week or 2, and every one of them were aware. And I believe that after the conclusion of our joint meeting with them, they were aware. But that's my take on it.
And is it for sure that they have 0 in their undesignated funds to contribute?
What was the question?
Is it for sure, is there certainty that they have 0 in their undesignated funds to contribute?
I think the answer is no, it's not for sure because the audit's not complete.
They don't have an
We don't
audit
have
to
an
figure out
audit.
that number. So they don't know what they have exactly, so they can't recommend to put something in their budget if they're not sure of that number.
So what happened, Pam, was the auditing firms that we were using stopped serving, I think, smaller municipalities. Is that accurate, Vika? And both the school and the town struggled to find an auditing firm that would take on that responsibility, not realizing that it's the law and the right thing to do is to have a yearly audit. So we've been struggling with that. We've now secured an auditor, but we're catching up.
It took us a year and a half to find an auditor, and now we're 2 years behind, and we just finished the 2021, so now we're just starting the first stages of 2022. So it makes it very difficult to get these numbers precise.
Okay, did you have a question?
I was just gonna comment on, last year, the school had a pretty significant reduction in their overall budget. They didn't need another teacher, so there wasn't enough children. They need another teacher. That's why the budget is, one of the reasons their budget is increasing. And that's kind of one of those things that, you know, you just have to kind of roll with it. I think where we didn't see a significant drop in the overall town budget last year is because then the town side needed that for, I can't remember whether it was dredging or something like that. So I think it just changes year to year.
Go ahead.
This isn't the right time, please correct me. I was just gonna ask if you could confirm the dollar amount that the select board approved for the rec center kids place. Again, this isn't the right time for that.
We haven't decided. I mean, we haven't approved the budget, so,
Have you recommended that? At this time?
well, we can tell you what's in there.
59,500 for the rec center and 20,000 for kids, that's correct. The first stand right now, Steve. That's what was distributed to you.
The year.
Previous year.
So no changes have been made to those numbers at this time.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm repeating myself, there's no changes have been made to those numbers at this time. That's,
Not at this time.
thank you for answering that question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Can I just ask the Beaker a question?
Go ahead.
I know that it was voted last time to drop the COLA to 4%. Was that for every, when you went through, it just because it still says 5% on all the other departments? I was just making sure.
Yeah, I probably forgot to change get rid of the notes. I tried doing, I mean, it was a week turnaround from last
I
week
don't
to
have
this
my
week, so
last
it was
week's
a lot,
budget with me, so I couldn't.
lot of
check that one.
changes in a short time.
But the number got changed.
Yes.
So we have,
Good.
I just had an email from Jeff. He was asking about, we talked about unifying the bookkeeper, whether it's all on the town budget or whether it's still partially whatever percent on theirs and percent on ours. So he's just looking to clarify the number on his side.
Mhm.
Just wants to know what the board's thoughts on that.
You mean where it is currently budgeted?
It's budgeted
Correct,
two
yeah.
places, yeah.
Right now, it's budgeted in the school and in town, and he's wondering if, based on the discussion that we had before, if we're thinking about unifying it or not. I told him we'd talk about it tonight. My thought is that it's so far in the budget season that to change numbers right now, I don't think is a good idea. So, but that's my thought. Carol?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't change the bottom line number, it's just redistributing it, and I think that the way I understood it from the meeting is they can't identify that as a position, they can't supervise that position, so they would prefer to have the cost show up on the municipal side, and since we're a municipal school district that needs administrative support, I'm fine with putting the full cost on the town side. I don't see, it's just a number, it's the same cost to the community either way. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too. I think the work is supposed to be broken up 60% town and 40% school. That's not funding of the position. I agree with that.
Does that mean that I need to change those numbers? Because that's changes that I need to
That's
do
a
on
good
my part.
question. What do you guys think?
Yeah. It doesn't change the bottom line on the budget.
It doesn't change the total bottom line. It only puts it over into one area of the town instead of two.
Right.
So where are we at, folks? We're gonna wrap it up for tonight and plan on meeting next week. And before we leave, do we have any questions for our town administrator to pass on to our assessor? Do we have anything to make sure that we clarify anything for next week before we leave tonight?
So I don't have a question for
Go
the
ahead.
assessor. I have a question for Vika is, so our plan is to have a budget next Wednesday that's finalized, and then we vote on it to approve it next week. And are we going to do a workshop or something to get to that point before next Wednesday? Or are we just, I don't understand how we can
Yeah, I
do
know.
it. And what is the drop dead date? I know you're, you know, pulling your hair out for all these changes and last minute stuff, but what's the drop dead date that you need this by?
I mean, it has to be, the town warrant has to be signed and finalized and signed by Board of Selectmen at least 10 days before town meeting. So that has to be done no later than June 1st. But then there really needs to be, the town attorney said that she would need about a week turnaround time. And I mean, I would like some time to be able to take all this information and then put it in town meeting document. So I guess it just depends on how much time you want to allow me to do that. The attorney needs a week and then it needs to come back to you for a final signature.
Go ahead.
I would suggest that we get a revised budget by Friday of this week. I mean, hopefully it won't take that much for Vika to go through and make sure the numbers are correct. Then at the same time, she and Jackie together can redo the tax calculation sheet, mill rate sheet with the new numbers. And we should get that by Friday, so we all have a chance to look at it. And if we have any questions, we can follow up before then. I mean, getting this stuff just Monday or Tuesday, it's just not enough time anyway. So, I mean, I think we have to make a commitment to get it to us by Friday. Then on Wednesday, we can look at that estimated mill rate and decide if we want to make any adjustments. That's what, and I would want, part of that information would be, what is the operating budget? What is the total percentage of undesignated funds that we have? What do we have available that's within the 16 to 25? Those are the three things I think we need by Friday.
And I'm sorry to say, will we know the results if they're any different than the budget is proposed right now from the school discussion next Tuesday on Wednesday during the day? Will we get any information? Let's say the school committee meets next Tuesday and lowers their budget a little for some reason or another. Will we have that information?
It depends whether the superintendent sends it to me or not. That's really, I think, in their ballpark.
Can we ask for it?
Can we ask them for it?
I can. I mean,
It
I've
doesn't hurt to ask.
asked in the past.
I would
There's
just
little
tell
control I
them,
have with that.
based on the schedule of getting the warrants published and based on the goals that both boards share of minimizing impact on taxpayers, we need to make final decisions next Wednesday. They're making final decisions on next Tuesday, but our final decisions are somewhat contingent on theirs. So please give us a catcher's signal about what's going on with the budget right after the meeting.
So Jen, back to your question. In my opinion, we're not gonna be meeting before next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, I think should be a goal of trying to have the final or very close to the final. Budget. Does that answer your question, John?
Sort of, so the excise tax needs to be changed. The bookkeeper information needs to be changed. And then if there's any changes with the school, that would be changed. And does that get us where we need to be?
I guess I'd like to see the final budget with corrections, tax calculation sheet. Then we're gonna get the town, the school budget, not till Wednesday, right?
Right.
So, I mean, we're gonna have to take that separately, but to me, I'd like to see this other stuff by the end of this week, so we have time. I think, I estimated that tax rate. I'd like to see what Jackie comes up with.
Go ahead.
Can we bring suggestions for line item changes to the meeting next Wednesday?
Certainly.
And can we, as we talk about all the information that we've gotten on Friday and the information that we get from the school, hopefully sometime Wednesday morning, are we able to, on the fly at the meeting next Wednesday night, calculate where we are in terms of people's tax bills? Can we estimate that Wednesday night? And with that estimation, can we finalize the budget? Can we, in that real time, Wednesday night, say, okay, right now, people's taxes are going up 3%. We don't like that. What can we change? Make those decisions.
I think we can probably come close, Bob, but I think in my experience with, I think Paul Bleska brought up a very good point. We just don't have control over some of this process. The assessor has some control in the end, and it's how they attach the total value of the town.
See, I don't agree with that. I'm not saying it clearly. Whatever she does with the mill rate evaluation doesn't change what people's tax bills are going to be. How much money we spend, we being the school and the town, how much money we spend this year, net of income and net of
Revenues, well,
residuals.
undesignated. Right?
Yeah, undesignated funds. Net of those two things. So that calculation, what we're spending minus income minus undesignated fund balance transfers, that total number of X million dollars compared to last year's total same number of X million dollars, that determines the change in people's taxes. The mill rate doesn't matter, the valuation doesn't matter, those two things cancel each other out. What matters to people's taxes is what we spend. I think that was Paul's point.
But there is some latitude.
There is.
But of what, Carol?
So the mill rate, there is a range that you can set the mill rate, and you have an over.
That's the assessor's decision.
Right,
That's
it's
not
not
our
us.
decision.
Right.
We don't have that.
All we can, okay, so I see what you're saying, Mark. That's what's happening.
So maybe we
It
should,
is, yeah. My only point is the assessor has that authority by state statute.
Right.
It can be frustrating sometimes, but that's just the way it works. And if your value goes up on your property, then the mill rate times $1,000 of that value is your actual bill.
But I'm not talking about an individual person's tax bill.
Oh,
I'm saying the average person's tax bill.
Yeah.
All we can do to keep it flat is spend flat. If we spend flat and Jackie makes changes that benefit some at the expense of others, that's out of our control. All we can control is spend flat or decide not to spend flat.
That's been my goal every year.
I know.
Have I succeeded?
So,
Not quite.
but we can make real-time calculations Wednesday. We can make individual line item suggestions and vote yes or no on them and come up with a final budget that then Vika can go to the bank with.
That was Paul's exact point. That's the power that this body has as an elected body.
Yeah.
I would say that's true if we go into that meeting with as correct a
Yep.
tax calculation as we can get.
Yeah.
And that all we're making adjustments on would be any changes we make then.
And don't forget, the ultimate authority is the town meeting voter. So the town meeting voters can go to the town meeting. Now, I'll get, just one second. And they can look at warrant article X, Y, or Z, and they can make a motion to up it, lower it, whatever they want to make the motion. They need a second, needs discussion, then a vote. They have them. Go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think Carol's time frame is doable to adjust those numbers and get with Jackie to get the mill, or not the mill rate, but the calculations?
I mean, if you're not giving me a lot of time to work with, and they're basically implying that I need to put everything else on hold to do this, so I don't really see that there's a whole other choice, so.
How much time do you think it would take you?
I mean, what I did this year, you know, I spent from 7:30 until 1:30 yesterday working on it, and then I put in probably a good 3 or 4 hours on it the day before. I mean, I'm not a seasoned town administrator, I'm not an assessor, so these things take a little bit longer time, and I spent a lot of time on the phone with Jackie. I had all the information that you had talked to her about, and I spent a lot of time on the phone with Marjorie. So I just feel like I'm circling back to it, and I don't, the one thing that I do know that I'm probably not going to have for you is a different information about the undesignated fund balance. I don't know how else to utilize Marjorie than I already did, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to provide you with more information on that than I already have, so.
I guess what I don't know, can you answer the question of the 605,000 that's in the undesignated fund?
Yeah.
What percentage is that of our operating budget? That's all I need to know.
Of the current one, yes, that I can figure out.
So as far as Vika's recommendation based on Marjorie's recommendation, with her experience, I'm going with 150. She's never steered us wrong. She knows what she's doing. And that's her, I mean, that was her profession to do that stuff. So I don't know, do you think you get the answers that Carol's looking for from Jackie? Are you clear on what she's asking? If not, it might be something that you can adjust this budget, the numbers on this budget to get the corrections in, and then give it to Carol. Then Carol maybe contact Jackie with the accurate number and ask her exactly what you want her.
All I want to do is recalculate it with the right numbers. But if you want me to do that, I can do it. I mean, Jackie and I can do it, if that's what you'd like.
I
mean, as far as I know, the only correction in here right now is the excise tax. Unless you're looking for something different, and then you look at the updated number and you recalculate the mill rate, which.
Well, I'll send you a list of some of the other numbers that did the job, so that you can check those.
Did you have more questions, Bob?
The other one is mainly just a comment. I'd like to urge this board for next year, once we start the budget season once more, whether this board does it or another board does it, to urge the school board to have a budget ready by a certain time frame.
I thought they did, right?
Well, they did, but we're waiting for them again. And we're not just us, but I'm just saying, to have them a time frame, say May 1st, we want your budget finalized.
I'm not comfortable.
And if then that's fine. I'm just making a comment. Thank you.
The undesignated fund balance, I would be comfortable easily with $175,000. I think you're gonna find that, I understand why Marjorie or any other town administrator would be conservative with the amount. But I think you're gonna find we're gonna have a pretty healthy fund balance available to us. And I believe that taking almost $200,000 out of it is still going to be well within that 60 to 25% range.
Correct, and it's.
Well, and I guess I want to understand. I was the one that was, trying to get a sense of what the tax difference was. Is it a goal to not have, I mean, is there a tax rate change, increase maximum that we're shooting for? Zero? Is it 3%? Is it?
I always shoot for a flat budget.
Right.
I never get a flat budget because it can be very tough to stay at the budget that you were at in previous years because of just, the sheer index alone. And then, not necessary expenditures within your operational budget, and then good capital planning and budgeting, which is very important. So, historically, since I've been on the budget, I haven't been on the budget all the years of the town, but I've watched it go up. I've watched the spending go up. David, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. I've watched it go up an average of just around 2.5% or 3%, and we've softened that spending increase by taking money out of the undesignated fund balance. We were very upfront with the voters, I believe, about how we were doing that. We tried to not budget too much, certainly, so that we were overtaxing people, and we tried to keep a good handle on the revenues and the estimates of the revenues so that we knew what we were gonna end up with. But did that answer any of what you had?
And since you used my name, let me respond. I agree with you. And the thing to look at is how we've done with our budgets versus the consumer price index and everything else that's happening in the world that impacts our budgets. Just because we want to spend no more, let's say, than $100,000 on the roads, doesn't mean the costs aren't going up. And I think we've done a pretty good job of staying well below actually the consumer price index.
So I'm thinking about wrapping this up, because we're gonna get back and finish a little bit of business. So we wrapped up with this for now?
Yep.
Are you okay with that, Vika?
Yes.
So, Bo, we wrapped up the budget talk, so you've still got other business, communications and minutes and.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry about that. All right, other business. We have anything else in other business? Top.
Is our letter that we've all been working on, is it gone out to the code officer?
I've been at training all day today. I haven't been in the office, so no, it hasn't.
Will it go out tomorrow?
I hope so, yeah. Just to follow.
Yes. All right, anything else? All right, communications. All communication I had was from Jeff about the budget, so that's all I had. And everything else. Any other communications? Vika, did you have any?
No, I don't believe so. Not that I can think of. I thought I had something printed, but I didn't see.
Jack and Trask was last week.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April 19, 2023?
So,
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, any discussion from the public? All in favor?
Thank you, Rebecca.
All right, items to be placed on the future agenda. I have Indian Island, surveyor, Owen Haskell. May 17th.
Weston
Not-
Sampson.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll hear from them by then.
Yep. All right.
What's the second one you said? Indian Island, Sampson, Westland, Sampson?
Yeah.
You said something else.
Oh, and Haskell,
Oh, that's-
as part of it.
Yeah, Indian Island. Anything else? All right. Do you have anything, Vika?
Junk cars, road signs,
What was the first one?
junk cars.
You mean from Kim's?
Well, we talked about looking at other.
Just a discussion on that.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be the next meeting. We just,
Bennett's Cove Road.
what was after junk cars? I'm sorry.
Road
Some
signs.
road signs, thank you. Jason. All right. And of course, budget.
So our meeting next Wednesday night, is that a regular meeting so that we can vote?
Yes.
Well, I don't care what you call it, but what we've been doing, you can call it a regular business meeting if you want, but what we've been doing is if select person A decides to make a recommendation on line item X, and we have three of us that agree, it's really a consensus, but if you want to
So it's
go
more of a
forward with
motion.
that, I'm fine. However you wanna
But if
handle it.
we want to make a motion at the end of that meeting, it has to be a meeting, can't be a workshop.
If you're going to make a motion to accept the budget as a final draft, then it has to be a business section.
That you do with the town warrant.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we
can do
don't
that
have to-
later.
So
So
those
that
are-
actually-
We won't have
That's
to-
what you're accepting
Yeah.
as a vote, as a final town budget.
So if we did a workshop on Wednesday, and we all agree that
And you
what we're
agree on
setting
those
for,
numbers, then I have to take those numbers, put them in the town format, and then that's what you vote on as approving as the board of selectmen, the final budget.
all right? So to clarify.
That was my understanding, but I can double check.
So we'll advertise it as a workshop, all right? And, yeah,
Second.
second by Carol. It is.
I would just like to say very quickly, though, I understand that it seems disappointing not being able to finalize our budget, but we have done some very good work this year on the budget, and we have gone down through, and we've tried to be responsive, yet fiscally responsible, so I wouldn't be too discouraged. I think we can make this up.
The only thing I'm discouraged about is if we don't have this finalized, our numbers finalized by next week, we're really putting a crunch on trying to get this done and looking at potentially moving the town meeting. So just throwing it out there. Thank you very much. We're on for both of you. All in favor? Let's leave.
Yes.
Carol, thank you for all that.
I know.